The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, good morning.
Well, yeah, good morning to you. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I can't see myself on the monitor. This monitor isn't working, so I guess we're on the air. So
yes, we are.
Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday and our last show of this week.
Yes, it is.
Because we will not do a show on Christmas because Santa Claus won't let us in the studio. So.
The reindeer need to be fed.
That's it. So, and I don't want to dodge reindeer poop.
No, and I've got to start off the show with some kudos out to our Fall River Fire Department. Last night they knocked down a fire next door to my house at 211 Buffington Street, and they did it without injury, and they got the fire under control almost immediately. They say it was a small fire in a bedroom, but every fire is a big fire in my opinion. But they did an amazing job. I also got to give my kudos to District Attorney Tom Quinn on a very emotional, very tremendous case of a 26-year-old, now 26, then 24-year-old, who was convicted with a 45-year sentence for a heinous crime. And I don't want to get into the nature of the crime, but let's just say that if it was my right to impose the sentence on this individual, it wouldn't be 45 years. Hammurabi's law would take effect, in my opinion, and I think that sometimes, justice is served in our community. Although I don't think there's any justice for what this individual did, but that's just some points that I had to bring out right away this morning.
Well, it's nice to hear, boys. Yeah, every fire is a potential major fire if you don't do an interior fire attack, and if it starts in a bedroom, you don't get to it in time, you don't do the job, it becomes the whole building and maybe the building alongside. So, kudos to the fire department on doing their job, and it's always tough at Christmas time. We had many fires at Christmas time. It's always difficult when people lose their Christmas presents and plus their personal belongings and mementos that are irreplaceable. So it's always good when you get one and you get it knocked down pretty quick, and most of the stuff is unscathed. So good work, guys. And well, we're back to some it is the Christmas holidays, so I guess everybody's busy doing their shopping and saying Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and then pegging everybody off in the parking lot because they cut them off for a parking spot. So 'tis the season to be jolly and hypocritical at the same time. So well, at least that's my this season always is kind of paradoxical for me. It's almost it's almost an oxymoron, because on one hand you have everybody wishing everybody well, and the other hand you have them fighting each other over whatever the present of the year is, whether it was those things with their hair sticking out of them or the Cabbage Patch Kids dolls, and they were near riots. So, but enjoy the Christmas holidays, and now that we're done with that, we'll get back to it. But I have to talk a little bit about politics as usual. Apparently the Charter Commission is debating hiring a consultant, and the costs for that consultant are pretty steep, and basically, I'm not sure if the people, when they voted for the charter reform, had any idea there would be, some serious cost to reviewing the charter and changing it. I think the average person thought we'd look at the charter, we'd update it, we'd bring it into line with any any legal inaccuracies that are there now, or in compliance with some laws that we may not be in compliance with, and the removal of stuff that's redundant. And basically make some changes, offer some changes, maybe in the, the strong mayor, weak council, in those various areas. And I think most people assume that that would be done by the elected charter commissioners. And if there were any legal issues, that the city's corporation council would assist them. And I don't think that Joe Macy would have any problem in assisting it. It is, in fact, the city charter. But this guy that they're hiring, we have to do some more research on him, because it seems that this guy has got a monopoly on the charters. He works for the state, and I have been told that he said that he is exempt from the bid process, and he's done a whole bunch of these charter changes. And fundamentally, what he does is he gives them about 85% boilerplate language. And for you people who aren't familiar with boilerplate language, that's just kind of generic language, like in a collective bargaining agreement, a contract. You have specific articles that refer to specific things like overtime and sick leave, et cetera, et cetera. But there's fundamental boilerplate language, like most collective bargaining agreements have, when it comes to public sector, they have what they call an evergreen clause in it, and it says that the contract stays in effect until replaced by a successor agreement. There's also a clause that stipulates who the contract represent, such as, this contract is between the city of Fall River, hereafter referred to as the city, and the uniformed firefighters of the city of Fall River, Local 1314 IAFF, hereafter referred to as the union. So, this is kind of boilerplate, and they have fundamental boilerplate language throughout the contract. So I've been told that this individual is going to supply them with basically boilerplate language, and then direct them. Well, I don't want, here we go again. We got an out-of-town political guy, and how he got this contract, and how he got this name, and how he's done 30 or 40 of them in the state smacks of political insiderness. Now we got this guy going to tell our elected charter commission, who was elected by us to do the city of Fall River's charter, and boilerplate aside, boilerplate is boilerplate. I mean, it doesn't matter what city it's in. Fundamental boilerplate is fundamental boilerplate, and anybody that's had any experience, or collective bargaining wise, or legal experience, any lawyer can tell boilerplate. And because if you pick up any charter throughout the state, you'll see fundamentally the same wording. Specific to Fall River, we got an out-of-towner now directing our charter review? I mean, come on. What's going on here? I think we need some answers, CJ. I don't know about you, but I'm a little disturbed by this whole thing.
Well, and Chip, the guy's getting paid $40,000. Again, as you said, it was a no-bid contract.
Which is more than the average household income, far more than the average household income in the city of Fall River.
Right, and he's worked on 15 of them. And one of the commissioners asked how many were elected bodies. He had to look at his list. He couldn't answer that question off the top of his head. He said 5. Then he did the count, and he says, oh no, 6. You're really instilling a lot of confidence in me. And I'm currently doing some research on how he is exempt from the bidding process, supposedly because he represents the Collins Center at UMass Boston. And they have done 15.
Oh, UMass.
Yeah.
UMass. Oh, now we can see the connection. Aha.
Okay.
Aha.
Yeah, and he said very clearly he's not worried about the payment because UMass isn't hurting for funds. Well, we know better because, they're screaming at UMass Dartmouth because they don't have enough money coming in. So when we look at this, we have to say, was this contract in violation of the bidding process, which the city has been cited on numerous times? And if they weren't, that's fine. what really bothered me was that Attorney Assad and Patrick Norton wanted to make it so that only Mike Mioza could talk to the consultant in regards to the charter. All communications to the consultant would be funneled through Mike Mioza. Mike said, oh, well, that's not a problem because it's only if we take a vote. You are making a de facto vote when you're saying, this is what I want, communicate it to the consultant to put into the charter. And if 5 people say the same thing, then you've taken a vote of 5 because you've already said it. You just haven't taken the formal vote in public. This is how they notoriously get around 30A for the open meeting law. And Mike said that he's going to ask corporate counsel for a decision on if that's legal or not. Well, I made, and they actually got me on camera, I watched it again and heard me. I made the point that ask the Attorney General for an opinion, because the Attorney General is the one ruling on this. So if the Attorney General says, no, you can't do this, and Joe Macy says, oh yeah, go ahead and do it, and the Attorney General gets the complaint that says, no, you can't do this, what do you think the ruling's going to be? I mean, why would you go to a corporate counsel, an outside attorney, to ask for the opinion that the state will provide you free of charge?
Well, you do it for political reasons. That's why you do it, and we all know this. And let's start at the beginning again. I want to know who whispered in whose ear to get this guy on board.
Well, Mike's been dealing with him since he started this entire project.
Well, but who? I don't think this guy fell out of the sky. The guy's not from Fall River.
No.
He's done 15 communities, and only 6 were elected boards. And now we immediately begin to cut the entire board that we elected out of the process. Only the chairman can talk to this guy. Who is this guy? The Oracle at Delphi? I mean, come on. Let's number one. How did we get this guy? Who whispered in whose ear? What politician? And then we look at the people who are now suggesting that we constrict the people that we elected to represent us in creating a new charter. And who is it? Patrick Norton? Wow, Norton. Isn't that familiar? That name kind of sounds familiar. Wasn't his father a lifelong politician, and wasn't he always given some job with some politician throughout his life?
Yes.
Thanks to Dad?
Yes.
Yeah, and so, I mean, to say that there's no political machinations going on, I mean, is a little naive. There may be no proof, but sometimes, where there's smoke, there is normal fire. And then we have an attorney, Assad. Well, we all know about attorneys, especially in this city. And we have to look at their connections. But regardless of that, we get back to the bottom line, CJ. I voted for charter commissioners. I put a line, not an X. It's the old X now. Now it's a line.
It's a line.
There's an arrow. All right, there's an arrow, just to show that I actually did see the ballot. So it's an arrow. But I actually did vote for, I made my selections who I thought would be good charter commissioners. I did that in good faith. I did that as a voter. I selected people that I wanted involved in the process of revising our charter. And they had to be Fall River residents to run for charter commission, because we're revising the city of Fall River's charter. And for now to take this process and basically say, oh, we're just going to sit in a room and listen to this guy. And this guy's from out of town, and he's done 15 others. And those 15, I don't really care what those 15 towns' charters say. I want to deal with Fall River's charter. I want to look at Fall River's government. I want those people to look at our city because they're from our city, and I want to shape this city the way we want it shaped. Not the way some out-of-town hired political bureaucrat. He's collecting a salary from the state, and now he gets side work. And he's saying he's got a monopoly. And I also heard the comment was made that once they review something and as a recommendation it's made, they can't go back to it. It's carved in stone. Really? Who said that? Who said that? Why does that have to be? You're telling me that if they're discussing an issue and they come to what they think is a resolution, but all of a sudden the public, they begin to get public input that says, hey, look, we're not happy with this stuff. You can't revisit this and modify it and change it for the good of the city? Look, I know one thing. I had collective bargaining agreements till the 11th hour. We had elements that we said were absolutely locked in. But at the end of the day, if it came to making that contract work, we had to go rework other parts that we thought were already put to bed, the bargaining committee reopened those things and discussed it and brought it back to the membership and said, and the people of Fall River, this is the city of Fall River's charter. We elected people from Fall River to modify this charter. And I don't know why we've got to spend $40,000. It's not rocket science. As this guy said, most of what he's giving you is boilerplate. And anybody can do boilerplate. And the rest of the stuff is unique to Fall River.
Well, Chip, the thing is, let me clarify a little bit of it. The gentleman that we're speaking about, he works for the Collins Center. The money doesn't actually go to him. It goes to UMass Boston. Secondly, there are timelines that they must meet. They have dates that they must do. And if they don't do them, they can't say, oh, we missed that timeline, there was a snowstorm. The state says, tough. You've got nothing now. You're done. So his whole position is to keep them on the timeline and to make sure that everything's done accordingly.
So what he is a babysitter. He's a babysitter. We're paying UMass like when Eddie Lambert was the mayor, and every time the city farted, we had to do a study.
Right.
Right. And who did it? The Center of Policy and Analysis from UMass. And where did Eddie Lambert get a job at the end of his tenure as mayor? At the Center of Policy.
At UMass.
At UMass. So, here we go again with the political game being played. Listen, let me tell you something. Elected officials, if you were so incompetent you can't follow a timeline, i.e. Dominion, let me bring that up. See, you want to know what's wrong with Fall River? We finally got to the bottom line. The people that run this city can't run a one-man parade. We had a law department that missed a deadline that they said they didn't know about, that when we were sitting in the council's chambers, CJ pulled it up on his phone in 7 seconds. And we were reading it. And they said, well, we never got the memo. Well, you're only the lawyers that were trying the case. Everybody else in the world could go on Google and get the memo. And it said it was due 30 days or 45 days after the rendering of the decision, and the decision was dated. And what did we do? We blew the Dominion money because we couldn't meet a deadline. Well, you know something? If we're going to revise a charter, and we elected a whole bunch of people to revise the charter, if they weren't competent enough to follow the timetable, we made a mistake. And maybe the charter's going to have to stay the way it is until we re-elect a new charter commission. But that's not an excuse to hire a political babysitter. That is not a reason. That's an excuse, and that's a justification to waste taxpayers' money again. There's deadlines that they've got to meet. Well, shit, I can read a date. I hate to tell you that. But if they tell me my taxes are due by April 15th, the IRS is not going to say, well, dummy, you can't read a calendar. You sent yours in May. Well, guess what? I'm going to pay, and we're going to pay. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. And this, again, is Fall River. I'm sick and tired of the mayor sending things down at the last minute, but I'm voting for it. That was the last council meeting. Last night. Goodbye, Dan. Again, thank you for reaffirming what's wrong with Fall River. All we get is BS excuses. Oh, sometimes you got to vote for something that's wrong because you have to. Really? You never have to vote something that's wrong. Oh, I'm sick and tired of the mayor sending down something late. Well, if he sent it down late, table it. Send it back to him. And then if there's a late fee involved, take it out of their salaries, the people that were responsible for getting it to you in a timely manner. This is again, government. Waste, incompetence, ineptness, and absolute ridiculousness, and there's never any consequences, because guess who pays all the bills? You and I. That's who pay the bills. They can just urinate money down a hole and continue to do it, and continue to raise taxes, and continue to create jobs, and say, well, you want services, you got to pay for them. Yeah, I want services, but I also want a lean government. I don't want extra people walking around offices. This is a classic example. And we can't even elect people to a non-paying position. And then we have to immediately throw this into it, make this a political process, because where'd this guy come from? The whole system, as far as I'm concerned, is upside down. It's absolute crap. And I'm going to tell you right now, if they hire him, I'm not voting for the charter change.
Actually, I believe he is hired. They approved the contract last night. Well, not last night, Monday night. And
one no vote.
Yeah, with one no vote, 8-1. But I'm looking right now on whether or not they can even do that. Because again, they have a timeline they have to follow. So they better know what they're doing before they do it, and they better have their ducks in a row. Because I told them at that meeting, it is a potential 30A violation. And they actually had a position to vote on it. And Mike turned around and said, well, we're going to table this till the next meeting on January 11th. No vote, no, we're going to table this till the next meeting, and moved it on. I'm like, and they're going to be taking a class on parliamentary procedure. I think they need it, but I think the entire city government needs it. But it's very interesting to see that, Mike said very clearly that these meetings will be transparent. He wants to hear from citizens and everything else. But the moment I stood up to bring a point of order in regards to the 30A, his response was, we're not taking citizens' input today. So again, the move to silence the people. And I am one that does not blindside anyone. If you now have it on record that there's a potential 30A violation, and you and I both know that if I don't file it, Patrick Higgins is going to file it. Okay? So if you know you've got people looking at you under a microscope, are you going to check it out? And you don't go to the corporate counsel. You don't go to Judge Macy. I respect Judge Macy. He's done a lot of wonderful work in the state. But you know what? If the complaint's going to be filed with the AG, you go to the AG. The AG will give you an opinion to an elected body. They do it all the time. And they do it rather rapidly. So why are you going to spin your wheels? At least when you get it from the AG, and I sent an email to Mike that night, and it said, consult with the AG, you'll get a written opinion, and you can read it into the public record. And then you don't have a problem. Don't get me wrong, I understand what some of the commissioners were doing. They were trying to make it easy on the consultant. But you know what? He's getting paid $40,000. You don't need to make his life easy. And the 15 cities and towns he's worked on, the charters are basically carbon copies. Certain changes are different, depending on the type of government and whatnot, but the carbon copy. And he said very clearly in his speech to the Charter Commission that the form of the charter is set forth in the Constitution, and it hasn't changed since. Imagine that. You can go to the Massachusetts Constitution and get the boilerplate for your charter. And he's getting paid $40,000 to go get the boilerplate for the charter. And here's the other kicker. We're paying $10,000 more than the last city because the person that he has do most of the work retired from state service, so she needs to be paid. So they bumped it up $10,000 to give her a pay. which is probably right under her requirements.
Yeah, yeah, the boilerplate. Well, the boilerplate's already there. He just plugs in the
blanks.
The blanks. It's just like any boilerplate. In today's technology, everything's on the computer. It's like we had our collective bargaining agreement on the computer. All the language was there, and all we did was go in and just delete and make the changes in the sections that were affected. The rest of the contract remained the same, and you hit, you just hit save, and you save that new copy of the contract, and that's it. And the boilerplate's always there. So again, why? The question is why. But that's a rhetorical question, by the way. I know what the answer is, because one thing about politicians, they love to spend your money. They will find a way to have a study or a consultant or something on everything. I'm surprised that they haven't done a study on how to use handy wipes. If you've had a problem in an accident. So I'm not sure, because
they probably have.
It's mind-boggling that we look at this stuff, and all they know how to do is run and hire some political hack.
Yeah, and the thing is, we see it not only here with the Charter Commission. We look at the CPA, okay, which I know you hate that. But they gave $100,000+ to someone to study the chimney at the King Philip Mill to find out that, now remember, $100,000 to find out that the chimney instability is the door that they use to clean the embers out of the chimney. The hole that they talked about was a door. You mean to tell me everybody that walked by could say, hey, you know what, that looks like a door? Common sense, right? Yeah,
and if you had a chimney, CJ, and you wouldn't pay $100,000 or $50,000 or $10,000 or $25 for anybody to look at the chimney. You'd be able to call any mason in the city, have them come down and give you a free estimate because they wanted to make money.
Right.
So you got a chimney that's the size of half of the Empire State Building. It's a giant mill chimney. You're going to tell me with the amount, if that needed work, there's not a masonry contract that it wouldn't come down, and an engineer would bring an engineer down to give you an estimate? But that's what the state does. And if you look at who gets these contracts, they're always connected to somebody.
Well, interestingly enough, they did come up with a dollar figure. It's $1 million to save the chimney now. So it's $1 million to save the chimney because of a hole in it from a door. Meanwhile, it will cost less than $1 million to knock the whole thing down, the whole mill, which is what everyone wants. How come the politicians don't remember Section 1, Article 5? It seems to go in one. It doesn't even go in their head. It just kind of bounces off, a force field around them. It's amazing. And it's not only at the local level. It's from the governor all the way down to the dog catcher.
And this is why Donald Trump is as popular as he is. They say he's crazy, but some people are sick of politicians.
Yep.
At least you know what he is.
Right.
And the fact is, whether you like or dislike him, he'll tell it like it is. And the reality is, why do politicians forget everything? Because nothing affects them. They got rid of the fact that they have to ask us for a pay raise. They have automatic cost of living increases that they grant themselves. They don't have to worry about health care because they take care of, they vote on their own health care. They don't have to worry about anything, and they can totally ignore us. We told them we wanted the tax reduced, and they didn't reduce the tax to the level that we said, because you know something? They don't care. And the problem is? 90% of them will get reelected because everybody will say, I'm really upset that they didn't lower our taxes to the level we said we wanted, even though that's what they're supposed to do. But you know what they say to us? We don't care. You keep reelecting us.
Hey.
Have a good holiday. But
happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas, and make sure you stay angry.
Be a little happy, but still stay angry.
That's right, because this isn't over yet. And believe me, come the first of the year, you're going to really see it hit the fan. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
We value your opinions.
Stay safe.